Hey everyone, welcome to the latest edition, a midweek edition of Browns Thoughts here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. My take on the Cleveland Browns and where they are. They are 1-3. They are going to Washington and face the Commanders, who are 3-1. Jaden Daniels looks like the next big thing in the NFL. But we need to talk about Deshaun Watson here because there's been a narrative going around in the media that it wasn't Deshaun's fault that they lost against the Raiders, and I've argued heavily that he is as big of a problem with this organization and this team currently as anybody because they reworked the offense, they fired the offensive coordinator, they changed the staff, they fired the running backs coach, and this offense is among the worst in the league right now. Deshaun Watson, just so y'all know, in terms of quarterback rating, the only quarterbacks that have a lower passer rating than Deshaun Watson, who is sitting at 74.4. The only ones who are lower than him are Tyler Huntley, who just played this week. He was a Cleveland Brown to start the season. He just played this week for the Miami Dolphins. Will Levis, who sucks. Caleb Williams, who's a rookie. Mason Rudolph, who only came in mid-game for the Tennessee Titans this week against the Miami Dolphins. Bo Nix, rookie quarterback. Anthony Richardson, second-year quarterback, who's very inconsistent. And Bryce Young, who got benched 2 games in the season, second-year quarterback. That is the state of where the Cleveland Browns are at quarterback. And this guy, in his press conference and his media availability, again, not taking any accountability, saying, well, you know, if I would have scored a touchdown on that drive, we could have been 3-1. I was like, well, guess what? You're not. You haven't come up with a drive in the last 2 weeks in games that you should have won, one on the road, one at home, against teams that are not very good. And you're 1-3 on the season. And you've yet to clear 200 yards passing. And I'm sick and tired. And here's the other thing. In terms of QBR, Deshaun Watson, of eligible quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to QBR, Deshaun Watson has the lowest QBR in the entire National Football League out of 31 eligible quarterbacks. He has the worst QBR in the NFL. What more do you need to know that this isn't working? This isn't just the offensive line. This is the system doesn't work around him. It was supposed to be catered to his strengths, and he is not performing. And I hear so many people saying, well, you know, hey, if the holding call on the Amari Cooper touchdown doesn't get called back, or, you know, Amari Cooper catches the ball that was right in between the numbers, this is a different story. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. Shit happens in NFL games. And you can't be going back to what ifs and whataboutism and all this other stuff to just try and justify that, hey, this guy, and try and, you know, like, create this narrative that Deshaun Watson's somehow going to be the guy he was in Houston. He's not going to be. The numbers for 4 games show that this guy is not good anymore. He's not. And I can't stand the fact that he actually wants to go in front of the microphone and say, yeah, you know what? Hey, if a couple things went a certain way, we would be at a different point. I was like, dude, you've been just as big of a problem with this team as anybody else. The defense, yeah, they haven't been able to stop people in certain cases of the game. You know, the offensive line has not been good. They're on backup tackles. You want to know why that happened? Because they spent 6 draft picks on you to get you from Houston and then paid you all that money, so they couldn't pay anybody. So the common thread in this whole thing is that Deshaun Watson is not performing up to that contract. And when you guys want to tell me he had his best game as a Cleveland Brown, first of all, that's ridiculous. The Baltimore game happened, and that game was infinitely more impressive than the Raider game. But at the same time, you know, that Raider game, he played fine. Yeah, it was probably his best game of the year. That's not a high bar to clear because he's been awful he was awful the previous 3 games. But to act like, you know, this is like, you know, to act like this is on the offensive line for not protecting him. And yes, he has taken a few hits. It's just, I gave you the numbers, and that's a combination of a lot of things. The offense is not delivering for him. The line's not protecting him well. His receivers are letting him down. Penalties have obviously been an issue, but at the same time, this guy, yeah, he's yet to clear 200 yards. And I don't want to hear the excuse that an 80-yard touchdown got wiped off the board. Guess what? It got wiped off the board. You still had a chance to adapt and to overcome that. You're inside the red zone on 4th and 3, and Deshaun Watson didn't let go of a pass. He just didn't. Could have let go of a pass easy. And I am not optimistic about this team going into Washington and then to Philadelphia. Nick Chubb is coming back, which should definitely help. I don't anticipate him playing this week, but there's a chance that he plays in Philadelphia. And if not, he's going to play. He would play in the following game, and I don't have that offhand right now. I will dig that up for you guys here momentarily in terms of what that Week 7 game is. So they're at home against Cincinnati. So that would be the game that I would ultimately target, because now he's got a 3-week window, a 21-day window to play. Otherwise, he's out for the season. So, but Nick Chubb coming back will definitely help this team. But if they're going to run the same offense that they've been running with this Ken Dorsey like hybrid model with him and Stefanski to cater to Deshaun Watson's strengths, it's not going to work. Like, you saw the Kevin Stefanski system worked for Joe Flacco. 5 of the last 6 games, he throws for 300 yards. Yeah, he threw some interceptions, but who cares? They won games, and they made the playoffs. 4 starting quarterbacks the 4 starting quarterbacks that they had last year all performed adequately on the field, better than Deshaun Watson has in the 16 games that he's played in a Browns uniform over the last 3 years. So let's stop the nonsense. I've been saying rip the Band-Aid off until the NFL steps in. I don't see any of that happening. It really sucks because this team is really talented. The offensive line is clearly an issue. I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that they don't have depth that they could build up, because they traded a lot of high-priced draft picks over the last 3 years to count on this guy to, be able to deliver because of the money that they gave him. And that's why I'm not going to be one of these people sitting here saying, well, he did a good job. No. When you're getting paid that kind of money, you owe it to the organization to play a lot better than this. And you shouldn't be playing, what if the holding call was not called? Or, yeah, this was a screw job by the NFL. Guys, holding gets called a lot in the NFL. It's a very the referees are going to call it if they see it. And it's not a screw job. It's a very, it's a very black and white issue. It's very you can't really tell one way from the other. It's really hard to tell. So, like I said, I'm not optimistic about this team. But they're going to have 2 wins at the end of these next 2 games. If they could somehow get to 3-3 off of this, I would be elated. But it's more likely that they're going to be 1-5 than 3-3. I would say that with a lot of confidence, and I'm hoping that they prove me wrong. It's really hard to root for this guy, and maybe he could find it in him to figure a way out of this. But this has been a mess. This has been an unmitigated disaster. And this doesn't even start with this season. This predates everything, and it goes back to when they traded for him. And that's why I'm judging it not just on individual games. I'm judging by the trade, the contract, and the performance. And he has not lived up to it at all, outside of maybe a couple of performances here and there. And that's not what you expect from a guy that you wanted to be your franchise quarterback. So stop defending him. Just stop. I've said in the experiment they're not going to. They're going to be stubborn because they have nowhere else to go, because they're going to owe this guy $100 million in a dead cap hit if they cut him. So they're stuck with him unless the NFL steps in and suspends him, and they have grounds to void that contract. But until that happens, he's the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And to me, in my opinion, it's just a horrendous piece of judgment and a horrendous decision from this organization to invest in a guy who had all those allegations on him in the first place. So that's this edition of Browns Thoughts. Thanks for watching here on the channel. We'll have a lot more great content, NFL-wise, college football-wise, and also wrestling for you pro wrestling fans. We'll have that on here on the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. OT Mike Sports and Off the Mic 28 on Twitter. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.